Okay, we all have some idea of identity. What about lie identity? I hadn't heard that term before, but I just heard it from Zinnia. Uh, your identity is who you really are. Your lie identity, that's who you tell yourself you are. That's who other people tell you who you are. Identity. That's what individualists seek.
And being in certain environments, like a lot of people wanted me to do different things that were more predictable, that were more where they found like the foundation was better in those areas, or they felt like I would have a more secure future. And for me, working in hospice, also, that's why I say very early on, my foundation was rocky, but these people helped me mold it to a better foundation because early on, working with people who I was working with them at the end of their life. So I was hearing about their regrets and hearing about and seeing the outcome of their lives and knowing that they were wishing or wanting to have done something different. And these were successful people. So hearing and learning people from the end taught me to do what is in my heart. So even though like I go to a Catholic church and I am Catholic, I still stand firm in what I think and what I want to do. And a lot of the people are more conservative in their thinking around me. And it took them to learn me and to grow and to get to know me. I'm changing them just as much as they're changing me.
It should be
Because
that way, yeah.
yeah, because it's like I'm not just because I'm here doesn't mean I'm conforming.
Mhm.
I'm here as me and we're going to get to know each other on the same front. And if you can't, a lot of people can't tolerate that, especially in some of the environments I'm in, and that's okay with me. And you don't have to, you know, you
Well,
know.
yeah, yeah.
So
But we're get back to dogmatism, and that's one of my main gripes, I think, about
Mhm.
some people. Yeah.
Yes, and you do experience that. But for me, it's not about so much the religion as it is the family and
Oh,
the
sure.
house of the family.
Yeah.
And so me being able to connect with these individuals and spend time and worship with them is like if I work at an all Muslim school, you know, so it's like they call God by a different name and I respect their religion. I go to a Catholic church, but at the end of the day, I just love God. It's not about what church I'm going to or what name I'm calling him by, because I don't know if that's his name anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they're just words that people made up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that inadvertently he hears me, you know, and I know he does. So that's just that.
Yeah, I don't think God ever created a religion. Man creates religions.
Exactly.
So,
I think religion is more, it's just like a cup of coffee. I want a pumpkin spice latte. I want a oat milk latte. You know, religion is just customized to how you live your life in the area, in the vicinity of what you want to live and the people you want to live by.
mm,
I don't think it's just is as much as it affects anything else except that, in my opinion.
yeah. So, in other words, religion, apart from the obvious part about believing in God and worshiping
Hmm.
God, religion is largely cultural.
Exactly, in my opinion, and from what my personal experience has been, like you know, and but that doesn't mean you should be torn away from going to church or being a part of a family or a part of a community because you don't not necessarily believe, but you don't want to follow every aspect of the religion.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean you can't have community
Yeah, and that's
and have
and
acceptance.
there are various sects,
Yeah.
both in, well, I think Christian, take the big three, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. I think there's the orthodox aspects of all three, and there's the not so
Hmm.
orthodox
Exactly.
aspects. People do what they do. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. As long as we're all trying to be good people and we're not afraid to expose ourselves to others.
Yeah, and I think that gets to what we've both been saying is when
Yeah.
people get too dogmatic about you're supposed to be like this and think like that, that's what
Hmm.
gets to be the problem.
Yeah.
Sure, like I said, I've had serious disagreements with people that they respect that we're different. I respect
Hmm.
that they're different. So we have our disagreement and still can have a great, conversation and good relationship as long
Yeah.
as we respect who each of us is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've said this more than once, but when I taught earth science to seventh graders in the Bible Belt, not too far from here. Uh, and earth science includes evolution
Hmm.
in the Bible Belt. I was teaching, and kids in invariably have something to say about, but that's all wrong and so forth. And my parents, my minister says, don't believe that. It's all made up. And I was simply, instead of saying it's true and you have to believe it, I simply said, well, it's science. I'm here to teach it. You're here to learn it. You believe whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
no problem. That's all they wanted, their freedom to
Yeah.
believe what they want to believe. And they learned it. And I think some kids get, oh, this isn't quite what my minister told me evolution was.
I don't think that many ministers explain evolution.
They don't, that I know of, yeah. And I have relatives who are, fundamentalists. So I've been to a number of fundamentalist services, and it's kind of funny because they'll speak against evolution because it's almost like part of their doctrine to reject evolution, but there's no vehemence behind it. There's no, I don't know. They
There's
just
no
do it. They
bones.
just do it. Yeah, just to be doing it. Okay, fine. I can sit in a service and listen to some of these ministers denounce evolution, and I don't take it personally. I don't think they intend it personally. It's just part of what they do. So,
Yeah. I don't. I'm not going to speak too much on evolution, but I will say that I believe both can exist. I don't.
Both evolution and what?
Well, I don't. I'm not. I'm saying I don't believe evolution automatically crosses out the belief in God, in a God. So I don't think, I don't see where the argument really, where it really is.
Yeah. The argument gets silly, was
Exactly. It's like,
was the universe created in 6 days or not? And I would say not. But I have no problem with the idea of intelligent design. And as much as I know about evolution, I'm not the ultimate expert, but I know a lot. And I say, this just like happened coincidentally. A lot of it is kind of sequential. This follows that, follows this. And you say, yeah, it makes sense. And still, you look at the big picture and you say, this just is.
There's more here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of scientists believe exactly that. The idea that your average evolutionist is an atheist is not true at all. So yeah, I think there's something behind. I just say to myself, there's some kind of life force, and you can call that life force God. You were talking about taste, their words, So call it what you want, but there's something that wants life to exist on this earth and to advance. And that life force may be just letting it happen, thereby evolution happens. But there's a life force. I think that it goes beyond just here's the genes and the chromosomes doing what they're doing.
Exactly. It's way too intricate. There's a designer. It's way too intricate.
And I'll only say the designer, I don't think that I can sense of anything. The designer isn't
a creator, rather.
Creator, because I don't know how much the creator is designing every little aspect of things, making everything go together. But a creator, yeah.
I believe that's why we're creative, and that's why we feel more at peace and whole. And like you were saying, following that path that's not so certain, because what's more important to our spirit and our soul of why we exist is to be creative, to expect to do on this earth what it is put distinctly into us to do. And that's why we feel more whole and complete when we're being creative. When I was doing nursing, because eventually I did get my MA and become a medical assistant, and then I got my LPN to do nursing. So when I was doing nursing, I felt at the time I always felt like I was doing a service at the time, because it wasn't a job to me. It was like a service. it was like, okay, I'm here. I'm able to be impactful in these people's life. I'm able to stay calm in these hard times for them. And I'm able to be like almost like an anchor for their family at these times. So it was never always about the care. I always found myself providing much more than the care.
Empathy and so
Yes, exactly. And so for me, I feel like that was even being creative. Even then, and that's why I found so much joy in that, and I learned so much, and it was able to impact me in the ways that it impacted me, because that was a part of my creativity. And now doing poetry and doing what I'm doing now, everything that I do surrounding it, it's all a part of my creativity. It's all things that were innately put in me. So I think that's why I say I don't see how we can deny it on a full scale, because like, how do you feel when you're doing that thing that only you, that's been put in you? And guarantee you've thought about it in some aspect since you were a little child. In some aspect, it was a part of you from birth.
Yeah. which is another thing, how are you and I, me, and I still can't quite figure that out,
And how will we ever be able to? That's even
Yeah.
more evidence of the creator, because
Mhm.
we can't figure it out. We're not capable. Our brains aren't capable. So how can we ever say what doesn't exist? Because we're not able to even figure out what does. You know?
Yeah, you take what you know you are, I think. You take what you know you are and do what you can with it.
hmm
But if you try to think too hard about why,
hmm
you don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try not to ask too many questions of um I'll try to lean more towards acceptance of things instead of asking all the questions. I ask the questions of the facts and things that make sense, but certain things I don't even breach upon because I know that I couldn't fathom it. Even and that goes for both ways, because even when someone is doing something completely mundane or ignorant, I don't ask too many questions because I don't want to understand that either. Because to be understanding it, I might become accepting of it and I might inherit it. So therefore I don't want to understand that.
Yeah, that goes to a whole other issue is especially for childhood, but maybe for at any age, whatever you become excessively familiar with, whatever it is in your life that is the day-to-day reality, well, that becomes your reality, good or bad. Is there anything in us that inherently says this reality is bad because you've done that? This reality is not the right reality. How does that all work? You know?
That's a question. I think that that I've been in places in my life where I'm like, you know what? This isn't where I should be. This isn't what I should be doing.
And yet there are drug addicts, as you may know better than I do, who like the way it is. They're good with it.
I don't think they're necessarily good with it as much as the drugs have numbed their desire for better, and also depleted their resources to get better because of the choices they've made
It'll suck money out of
on the
you,
drugs.
for sure. Yeah.
Not only suck money out of your pocket, but have the people around you lose faith in you, not want to trust you, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that they should
Ultimately reject you, and that just
exactly.
isolates you. Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily thinking that people who are on drugs necessarily like their reality. They obviously didn't like their reality. That's why they started doing drugs, to escape reality. But now they're in a place where it's like a vicious cycle, and not making excuses because hey, they had the choice, but you can get so deep in the hole that you can't dig your way out. You might need somebody to throw you a ladder, or you might need somebody to climb down there with you for a little while and teach you again how to be a normal human being. But I'm also not saying it's everyone's responsibility to do that, but that could be a part of someone's creativity, and that could be their calling and what they are here to do. And so I don't like to completely say that they don't want better. I think it's
Well, I wasn't necessarily suggesting not wanting better, but that their idea of better is the drugs. I'm suggesting that because I don't have enough personal experience.
I don't think that their ideal of better is even the drugs. I think that their ideal of, like we were just talking about, sacrificing your todays for tomorrow, and sacrificing your tomorrow for your future. I think that they just are stuck in that today and tomorrow.
The what?
Stuck in the today and tomorrow. They don't have
even the tomorrow.
Even the tomorrow, or the today in the 10 minutes. Whichever one that is. I don't think that is necessarily like they think it's the better. They're just stuck in this cycle of abusing themselves and not feeling loved and feeling in fear and then when you're off of those drugs, all of those feelings rushing you and not being able to cope and having the skills. And it's a lot. It takes a lot to save a person. It takes
a situation like that.
Yes, it takes a lot of intervention to really. It's beyond just getting them off the drugs. It's like at this point now that
people periodically get physically off the drugs, then they get right back on again.
And even if you look at when I worked in the medical field, I worked in a doctor's office for a little while as well. And I was an MA, and I would check patients in and go over their med list and so on and so forth. I would say about 80% of our patients were on antidepressants. 80% were on some
Or
form of,
prescribed
yeah,
treatment?
prescribed
Mhm,
some form of antidepressant.
mhm,
So if these are people who are not drug addicts and they need antidepressants to cope with the life that they have, they've never messed their life up with drugs, let's say, but they need a medicine to cope with the life we are living right now, with the pressures we're living in under right now. I can just imagine what it's like for a person who have had a life of making mistakes, of being on drugs, and the criticism of their families or their children or the people, their peers, and now they're off of them, and why they slip back into them is the same reason why we need these antidepressants, because life as it is hard. And if you're a person who's made those mistakes, I can imagine it's even harder
yeah.
walking around. For me, when I had my son at 19, I walked around and I felt judged everywhere I went. I felt like I couldn't become anything. I couldn't be anything because no one would give me a chance. Men talk about you bad because now you're a single mother. No one wants to be with you, or they just want to be with you for.
Cut in on that because that's just an interesting point. Do you think that was then and this is now? People judging still now when a
Oh yeah,
19-year-old?
they will, but the change now is I don't care. The change now.
The girl, the woman doesn't care.
No, the girl cared, and
Yeah.
the girl allowed people, like when we were talking about how some people have done way worse, and I said, well, some people did way better in my circumstances. I think the difference between those people who did way better and the people who did way worse is the amount of criticism they accepted, is the amount
They
of,
accepted the judgment.
they accepted the lie identity
Mm,
instead of their true identity.
mm,
They accepted the lie, because before I became a single mother, I was pegged as a crack baby. And before I was pegged as, after I pegged as a crack baby, I'm pegged as a crackhead's daughter or a foster child. And so I'm getting all of these lie identities thrown at me throughout my whole life. And so now I am everything they said I was, right? Because I'm a single mother at 19, even though my circumstances were completely different on how I became one. But now I am one. So no one cares about how I became one. No one cares about what happened to me. What they care about is I am one.
mm.
And so now I'm not only being judged by women, I'm getting judged by men. I'm a 19, I'm a young girl. And so these are times where I should be going into college and flourishing and maybe meeting someone, getting married, but no one wants to. They'll judge you because you're a single mom. You have to be loose. You have to have bad morals. And on top of that, my mom's an addict and I have this background. So that is how people get in those cycles. It's like, is how much of that lie identity do you believe?
Is it like that now?
For me now,
For anybody?
yes. I
Okay.
believe it's like that for
Okay.
people. I can't speak on anyone individually, but I know that if I experienced it and how much it took me to overcome and see my worth, then I can just imagine what people who are experiencing that and have made even worse decisions and choices than what, and I can't even call them worse, but different, more easily to judge decisions than what I made, So I really believe that people are just hurting and they are believing that they are everything that people have told them they are their whole lives. And that doesn't have to just be Black people or people on drugs. It's like there's people who suffer on all different spectrums and they can't get out of those cycles. And I truly believe it's because they believe the lies that they've been fed their whole life of who they should be and could be. It's brave people like you who say, I'm going to be who I want to be, who your exposure to those people hopefully will help them to choose to be who they want to be and make choices that are better for them in the society they live in. But a lot of people are hurting and they are believing the lies that they've been fed their whole life of who they can be and where the trajectory of their life should go.
Okay. And that triggered another thought in me. We have all kinds of social programs um, for people in situations just like you, whether it's drugs or the
Hmm.
pregnancy. Uh, as a person who's been around and in those social programs, do they work? Do they not work? Some of this, some of that.
That's actually something that I was thinking about recently as well, because I remember when I was in school, our public schools were always open late because we would have typing classes, GED classes, we would have coaching classes. Like at my high school, I went to an inner city school, but we had a golf team. We had all these things accessible to us, but not many people took advantage of them. And I think the reason why they didn't take advantage of them is because they didn't see the benefit at the time. because you're so immersed in the culture you're living in. It's like a culture effect. And it's almost like I really can't explain why they weren't as taken advantage of as they should have been. But now that I'm older and I'm kind of in the same shoes as some of those people going into schools doing after school programming, working at the Harry Beach Storehouse, trying to get people interested in coming to learn about history, and I'm trying to gauge that interest, I can say that it did have a benefit for me because I was exposed. Now, did I always take advantage of that? No, because
So you can't do everything.
you do what you do what you know and you do what's around you. Now, do I feel like that? So the question is, do I feel like they help? Yeah, I do feel like they help because it's just like I was saying, you're offering exposure to others to improve their lives. And not everyone will take advantage of it, but those people who are receptive to it, who like me and like other people, will take advantage of it. And those are the people you're there for. You're not there for quantity. You're there for quality.
Right. Which kind of brings something else to mind. Okay, they had a golf team and so forth. Uh, what about things that are more, I guess I'll say central, like counseling or whatever? I don't
See,
even
those
know.
are the areas where I feel like we lack because that's what people need. They need counseling, they need that one-on-one coaching, and they need that opportunity to overcome some of the emotional obstacles. And I don't feel like that's offered at all. It wasn't offered.
Then and now, or
I can't speak for, well, yeah, I would say then and now, but I do feel like now there's a more emphasis on it because like now there's like, for instance, I have a friend who has art, who does runs Arts Equity Collective, and she does like trauma informed poetry workshops and stuff. So I believe now people are starting to realize, especially like I said, with 80% of our patients were on antidepressants. And I think now people are starting to realize the importance of counseling, the importance, especially with COVID and everything, everyone being like exposed to their own demons during that time. I think that it highlighted the necessity of counseling and therapy and yeah.
yeah, it's almost. Well, I just think, yeah, the solution to everything these days is a pill. It seems like, whatever's
Yeah.
wrong with you, here's a pill, you'll be better.
Yeah.
And then the pills end up being the problem.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then so now you need counseling. I'm going, well, wait a minute.
I think we should have started with counseling before we
Yeah,
gave the pills,
yeah.
That's another thing that really, I think that's a part too in my story that I did not remember to include. I did get therapy. So
Mhm.
after I had my son, I needed therapy because the circumstances surrounding his birth were very traumatic for me. So therapy is another thing, another tool that helped me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be kind of a devil's advocate. I was never in therapy in a big way or anything, but I've counseled and been counseled to a degree. Is it possible to have the wrong counseling and they end up making things worse instead of better?
Yes, absolutely. When I first started therapy, I went through probably five different therapists before I found someone that could understand me even. Because a lot of therapists, from this is only from my perspective, because I am an African American woman who grew up in the inner city, who grew up with a drug addict mother, who have all these intricacies, and a lot of survivor's guilt as well. So it took me a while to find someone that would understand that instead of have to study it along with me. And a lot of therapists are not coming from backgrounds that even closely relate to what I've experienced. So they're more so worried about anxiety or, the gen pop issues. And what I had was very, I don't want to say, unique because it's not unique,
Hmm.
but just intricate, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, because a lot of people would just look and say, oh, well, you're strong, you're fine. But yeah, I'm strong and I'm fine. But that's because I have a very strong mind and a very strong will, but I'm not always fine. Don't mistake my strength as me being always okay. So that I had to find someone that could understand how I could sit stoic and talk about certain things and not cry and it's like I feel the emotion, but I'm not a very emotional person when it comes to strangers or interactions and stuff, but that doesn't mean I don't feel the emotion. So it took me a while to find somebody that can understand that. Yeah. And the first therapist I had was a horrible.
Well, that's kind of what. Okay, I worked in the end worked the trade, so I was a woodworker, and
Mhm,
well, okay, so a person's woodworker. What does that mean? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they this kind, that kind?
mhm,
Yeah. So there's good doctors and not so good doctors, or nurses, or
mhm,
carpenters, or therapists. And I
mhm.
wonder if there are therapists out there that maybe they shouldn't be therapists. And
There's everybody out here that shouldn't be everybody.
yeah, right.
I was watching a Barack Obama speech, and he was not speech, he was just talking like an interview. And he was talking about how on every level you get in these rooms and you're thinking that everyone's just so brilliant because they're in these rooms, but you get to talking to these people and you realize not every there's ignorant people over countries, there's ignorant people who are in office, there's ignorant people everywhere. So just a title does not automatically depict your intelligence or your ability to empathize either. So
Yeah, certainly not. My bias concerning politics is getting elected is one of the easiest things there is to do.
hey,
It requires very little intelligence,
I think it
knowledge.
requires quite a bit of money now, though.
Yeah. Usually not that person's own money, somebody else's money.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I don't get too excited about, and I'm not this party or that party or anything. I just look at it and go, whatever. So, but yeah, again, I obviously got my bias, but I'll look at a good plumber and say, that's my man. I like it. And so,
Yeah.
um, a really good speech is a really good speech, but it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily, you know, make your toilet flush, I guess. I don't
No.
know.
No.
So, yeah, when we were talking last time, just you and me, um, you mentioned a YouTube channel, Soft White Underbelly, and I wanted
Hmm.
to bring that up because I started watching that and it's like, whoa, I've seen a lot of YouTube and stuff. I have not seen this.
Hmm.
And it addresses some of what we've been talking about here.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, certainly, I live in the city. Have I ever known a drug addict? Yes, and so forth, but not that closely, not that continually. And you see these people talking on these YouTube videos, and in so many ways, they're so normal. Well, my detail is the person's a prostitute or a drug addict or both, or God knows what, and yet otherwise they're normal people. Uh, and I just don't know. I'm just affected by that. I just don't know.
You know what I think that tells me? That
But
there is no such thing as a normal person. We're
I
just
almost go
people.
the other way and say we're normal, but we do things differently. You
Exactly.
know,
There is like who's the say what's normal and what's not,
well,
as
for
a
sure.
person.
Well, normal,
But
just as a guy who took statistics twice, there is a scientific definition of normal, but just so we
please
have
tell
that
me
out
what's
there.
the
So,
scientific way.
well, normal just means this is what most people do in simple
Okay.
terms. Okay. That doesn't make it right or wrong or good or bad. This is
Hmm.
what most people do in a situation. That's normal. It doesn't even have to be people, whatever.
So
Uh,
then today, I guess if we have a reel that is of someone eating mud and it
if
gets
everybody's eating
if
mud, that's
everybody's
normal.
eating
Yeah.
mud, now that's what's normal.
Yeah. Scientifically speaking, statistically
Okay.
speaking, nobody, and again, that doesn't make it good or bad or right or wrong. You mentioned
So
normal.
it
I
got
guess.
100 million views. So now that's what's normal. That's what I'm saying. That's probably what's affecting our culture now. That's what I'm saying. That's why things are becoming normal
Oh,
that should not be
absolutely.
normal.
Well, we're back to politics or marketing or anything else. There are people whose job it is to make the abnormal normal in
Yeah.
people's minds.
Hmm.
Look, yeah,
Yeah.
and we should all be cognizant of that. And again, I'm not judging what anybody should or shouldn't be trying to get people to believe.
But we raise awareness, and to be aware is to be responsible.
But I'm just saying, first and foremost, be aware of who's influencing you
Hmm.
and what are their motives, because they aren't always pure motives.
Yeah.
So that's all I was getting as far as normal. Yeah, what we presume to be right. If we 90% of us say such and such is right, well then it's right, and those other 10% they're wrong. Well,
Yeah.
yes and no, because we've only just
Some
mentioned.
people even if you look back on history, you being a person who is interested in history and me being a very novice who's interested in history, um, you can look at some of the historic movements and the motive did not match the presentation.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you really look at what, like, even I'm not going to go into it because I don't want
Well,
to be
feel free. Feel
condemned,
free.
but if you look at the women's right movement
Mm.
and who funded it and why it was funded and what the, not to say I don't, of course, I'm a woman and I want my rights and I'm grateful for all the women who fought for our rights. But sometimes an ally is really your worst enemy because they may go along with what you want, but their motive is completely different because they see something that you don't see that will be an outcome as well. And I can look at a lot of things throughout history where where it came in as help, but really the helper had another motive as well.
Let me just, because this is a perfect illustration, but it's a little weird. But
Hmm.
one, because then I want you to go on with what you're saying, but this, I just want to get this in there. Um, Hitler was not a fan of Jews, right?
Hmm.
Well, and he spoke very openly against them. But the Warsaw Ghetto, when he wanted to confine the Jews in the ghetto, they started putting up fence, wiring, and guards and everything. He didn't tell Jews, "I don't like you, and therefore I'm going to find you, and you don't even want to know what comes next." He said, "This my microphone." What he said instead was, "There's all these people saying bad things about you, and a lot of them are violent. We're going to put all this stuff up and put guards around here to protect you."
Hmm.
That's what he said. So yeah, you
Hmm.
watch out for the people who are trying to protect you. And I
Hmm.
just want to throw that in there. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that you gave it a good perspective. And another example of that is like Planned Parenthood, They're put in these areas and you're thinking like, oh, they're put in the inner city because they're trying to help us have access to healthcare. No, they're trying to control the population of the inner city. And so it's like, but we don't see always the,
Quarter mile that way was the
yeah.
former Margaret Sanger Clinic, which now has some other name. But Margaret Sanger, one of the founders of Planned Parenthood, was a eugenicist. She wanted to control the population of riffraff,
Hmm.
poor people, not just blacks, but largely
Yeah.
blacks,
They want to control the population of the inner city.
of less desirable people.
Yes.
So that's why those abortion clinics got created.
Hmm.
She absolutely, her motive was not to do good things for poor people. It was to get rid of the poor people.
Hmm.
Absolutely, no question. And
But
how she ended up with her name as little as maybe 5 years ago of a racist eugenicist, her name on a building over there, like, I'm going, do these people have any clue? You know?
well, that's just like all of those Confederate monuments. The women of the Confederacy, they wanted to preserve the history of their.
At least, at least they were genuine. I get it. You know, it's like, okay, they had their Confederate statue. My question is, if they wanted to put a Confederate statue in your front yard, would you say, oh, okay, fine?
Absolutely not.
Well, there you go. Well, they were putting the eugenicist name on that abortion clinic over there. I mean, my God, are they paying any attention?
No,
Yeah.
no. But yeah, so you have to watch the motives too, and that's another thing I would tell people when I do speak about exposing yourself to others. You do have to watch people's motives because not everyone has even in my personal life. I've had people that came into my life to help me and really were helping themselves to me,
Yeah,
and
sure.
especially when you're a person who comes from what you deem as lesser, you think that everyone is trying to improve you because you think that you come. I've went through a lot of that where you think everyone is trying to improve you or help you because you come from a place of poverty or you come from a place of less. And not all the time that's not always the truth because you may come from that, but that has nothing to do with your value. And they see your value and they will use your value to their advantage because you don't see it and you think that you are what you come from, but no, you're not. And so you're operating like that and you're operating as a lesser person around everyone, and people will take advantage of that until you rein it in for yourself. Every I don't walk into rooms anymore like I'm less than anyone. I don't care if I'm walking in a room with a bunch of professors or doctors or anyone.
Absolutely.
I know I have something to bring to this room, and that's why I'm here. And ever since I stopped operating like that, my opportunities aren't even the same. My opportunities don't even come in a lesser package.
If you don't believe in yourself, why the hell should anybody else believe in you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But when you come from a place where people have been telling you who you are and they haven't been very favorable things your whole life,
Mhm.
you believe it and you end up exactly what they told you you are.
Absolutely.
Exactly what they told you you are. Like
Yeah.
if they tell you you're not going to be anything but a single mother, you end up as one. If you believe it,
Mhm.
you fulfill their prophecy
Yeah.
instead of fulfilling the calling on your life.
Yeah, and there's so many influences, like you said, social media. There's so much coming from so many different directions. We all have to weed out a lot of crap
Yeah.
and find the stuff that's really good for us. Yeah. Yeah.
It's difficult. I think though, if we get through life half of who we were meant to be, we succeeded because it's like it just chips away at you, just chips away at you.
But I will say, I don't know what I'm defending, but I'm defending it. We have so many opportunities in this day and age
Oh
in this
yes.
country.
hmm
The downside of that is you have all these choices and decisions to make that really confuses people. It confuses me.
Yeah.
If you're born in another place at another time, your choices maybe is you're going to work the land. There's your choice. There's no choice. Uh, so nobody to credit, nobody to blame. You just do it. Um, I do think we suffer a lot of like angst. Oh, woe is me. Simply because we have so many good choices, and it becomes confusing. So I would just like to throw that out there that it's what people deride as being just terrible, actually, in a sense, is wonderful. In a sense.
That's kind of like I was saying with the count it all joy. You have to look at it like it was necessary.
That the which
Like count it all joy. Like there's life isn't going to be all peaches and cream.
Right.
The good and the bad are necessary to mold you into the person you're supposed to be.
There's no black without white, and there's no good without bad.
Yeah.
So you have to consider all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree.
Okay, well, it's been great. Anything else you want? I could do this all day. I don't know about you.
No, we can be good. I'll do a poem for you if you want me to do one for you.
Is what?
I'll do a poem for you.
Please do.
Because we all say that. I've been telling you I'm a poet. This is a new poem that I've written recently. I'll give you my most recent poem, and it's called I've Been Writing These Poems. So here we go. I've been writing these poems since they wrote me off, labeled me a no man's land, surrendered my love, assuming it yielded no fruit, left barren, beaten, branded, and breached, drowning in disappointment, none of which my own, since they've been gone. I've been writing these poems as love notes to my future self, leaving her whispers encrypted between the lines for only her to mind, only she can find. I've been writing for the past, to pass time before I pass, because time ain't nothing that you play with. I write for all the times I had to hold my tongue and couldn't say it, to let the steam out, about things I deserve but can't seem to have, things hard to grasp. Things that slip through my fingers, get caught in the pen and leak and trap on the path. Overwhelmed by optimism, buried in regrets, writing these poems get the weight off my chest. I've been writing these poems so I won't lose my grip. Tethered to the notebook, depending on the bind, formulating my own Shangri-La. Doing magic tricks with my Bic, I've been writing these poems so my pain could sit. These poems pose as pedestals for the discarded, and they'll find themselves in their hooks, see their reflections in my elegy, metaphors turn Eden for the grieving. Writing these poems be exactly what they needed. The beast of duty with so much beauty. The rose in the thorn, the joy in the morn. Writing these poems be the best thing about waking up. In the boogeyman in the closet at night, they be everything wrong in everything right. Insanity and logic soothe and ignite. These poems, peculiar, overly emotional messages sung. These poems, parasitic observationalists, egotistical, manipulative savages, shadows of demons, echoes of cry, giving value to this brown girl with no worth in this world. I don't write these poems. These poems are my grave. Living these poems since before I could read them, I theme them. I write instead of panic when I can no longer stand it. I've been writing to heal damage. Writing my way through early nights and late mornings, there's a cadence to this catastrophe. I write these poems because they keep their mouth shut. I don't judge these poems, and these poems don't judge me. I've been writing these poems about things I can't speak, through nights I can't sleep, through frustration, stockpiling my disappointment on the pages. I've been writing these poems in stages, about stages, reciting them on stages. I've been writing because there's one piece of me this world ain't taking. These poems be promises to keep pushing. Prayer in praise, early nights and late days, making ways out of no way. These poems be handmade, one of a kind. One day there'll be grants paid for each page, maybe each line. I write these poems because these poems save lives. These poems saved mine. These ain't poems. They exhales of the exile, diaries of a stepchild, Negro spirituals for the Negroes who's spiritual, solstice, a long summer night's end, a winter's blues. I don't write these poems. I'm just used. That's it.
Whoa, 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 whoa. That was incredible. Not just what you say, but how you say it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
That is my creativity coming out.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. Put
Yes,
where you're
sir.
at, I guess. But thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I had a good time, Chip.
I'm glad you did.
Yes, sir.
We could do this again sometime.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then.
You can bring it back full circle.
Okay. Well, we'll just talk to the camera and say thanks for everybody for listening and watching, if you're watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Well, Zinnia certainly can write a poem, and she can speak the poem. That was incredible. I hope to be able to do this with Zinnia again sometime. At any rate, I hope to see you again soon on Conversations with Real People. You can track us down almost any place, but home base is individualsunite.substack.com. Also, just plain old individualsunite.com. Thanks for listening.